This episode is proudly sponsored by Indigenous Business Australia, who serves, partners and invests with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who want to own their own future. Welcome to the Black Magic Woman podcast with Mundanara Bales.
I'd like to begin this podcast by acknowledging the Kabi Kabi peoples, who are the traditional owners of where this podcast is being recorded. I'd also like to pay my respects to the elders, past and present, and acknowledge that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. As First Nations peoples living in this country, now known as Australia, we have never ceded our sovereignty. And these are conversations that are happening today and have been happening for the last 250 years. My name is Mundanara Bales and I'm the host of Black Magic Woman podcast. If you are new to the series, this is the IBA partnership where we are now basically sharing stories around strong women, strong business. You may have listened to the last partnership where we were basically sharing stories of Indigenous Business Australia, also known as IBA, of their customers that have gone through home ownership programs, their business accelerator programs, Future Forum, all strong women, strong business. So my guest today, Natasha Short, is from the Strong Women, Strong Business program. And Natasha, can I just hand over to you to do an introduction to tell people, well, listeners and also our viewers now on YouTube, an introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself, who your mob is, and where you grew up, and then we'll actually get into the business side of things.
G'day, Jill, good day, and thank you very much, and thanks for this opportunity of sharing with yourself and the audiences out there. I am a Jaru Ngaringa, a Jaru woman. My skin name is Nyoru, and I actually come from Hall Street community, which is 400k south of where I live right now in Kununurra, which is Mirrawong Gidjarong country. So been living in Kununurra pretty much all of my life, so this is home for me. But anywhere in the Kimberley is home for me, actually, Mundanara.
Love it. Natasha, can you tell us a little bit about your family, where you grew up, what was it like growing up, especially for people that have never visited that beautiful part of the world, the Kimberleys?
Absolutely. If I can start with a few little stats, because actually a number of people have asked me if the Kimberleys is in the Northern Territory, and it's not. We're in northern Western Australia. So we are 400,000 square kilometres, 6 major towns, 4 shires, 160 Aboriginal communities, 36,000 people, of which 40% are Indigenous, more than 40 Indigenous languages.
Wow.
Amazing, isn't it?
In just that region alone, 40 different languages.
More than 40. And we're 95% native title determined. So our traditional owners have proven their connection to country. Like you said, sovereignty was never ceded. And so this is the traditional home of many, many of our people. So it's a very beautiful place. People actually come here for its beauty. It's known for its beauty. And it's a great place that people visit because of the ancient landscape, the fishing, just the scenery is spectacular, to say that. I grew up between Halls Creek, which is my traditional country, and Kununurra. I'm the eldest of 4. Had a great childhood, had a very stable home life that basically gave me a great foundation to be able to do the community work that I've, very passionately pursued for a very long time under Nara. And I'm very passionate about social justice and Aboriginal people doing well and being empowered. So that's the sort of stuff that I have put my hand to for a very long time. Passion is free energy, as someone says, and I use my passion to give me the energy that I need to work in a very complex environment with significant challenges. But I always believe that nothing is impossible.
Too deadly. So how did you come up with Kimberley Jigars?
Jigars, yeah. So
I remember the cigars.
Yes, Jigars, yeah. So it means birds in the Jaru language. So Kimberley birds is a bit of a play on word. It means that I'm a collective of Kimberley Indigenous women birds, Mm-hmm. And so I launched Kimberley Jigars in October 2018. So I've been 4 years operating as a consultancy business in the Kimberley region, predominantly serving people of the Kimberley, but also wider Australia as well. So after 25 years of community development work, I had a friend who came along and suggested business to me as another way to create an income. And I had never been really introduced to such a concept. I had worked all of my life and I'd been very happy to work, and I was very committed and absolutely passionate about what I was doing. So that wasn't an issue. But now suddenly the concept of generating wealth in a different way was introduced to me, and I basically took it. I took her advice. I considered it for about 6 months about how I would go about it. And we landed on Kimberley Gigas and the fact that we're a collective. We're going to use our women, our Aboriginal women of my community, to get better outcomes. Because at the end of the day, our Aboriginal women, they're actually doing a lot of unseen work. And this is not just in the Kimberley, right, or around Australia. This is around the world. So they're actually an untapped resource. And I knew that. I knew that a lot of our women are doing the work, but they're not being properly resourced or even recognized for the value contribution that they can make to our communities, and also do so, you know? So I ended up inviting a whole bunch of Aboriginal ladies to come along this journey with me. And, you know, I'm delighted to say that I had, you know, great support from our local women, and also, especially important, our elders as well. So a lot of our older women were very pleased to align themselves with me in this endeavour to promote our women. And when I set it up, basically was for the purpose of amplifying the voices of Indigenous women, promoting Indigenous culture, and enabling more businesses. And that's precisely what I'm doing. So 4 years in, and it's looking pretty good. And this will be where I'll be for the next 20 years, hopefully.
Yep. In community, working with your mob, in particular,
Yes.
empowering women, which I love. That's the reason why I launched this podcast, my sister, is to amplify more Black voices. You don't have to be an academic. You don't need to be a doctor or a surgeon or a lawyer to, you know, get an invitation to jump on this podcast. I want to hear people's stories, and I want to share those stories with the rest of the world. You know, a podcast has that impact, right? Or has the potential to take our stories to a global audience. I heard that you have a podcast as well.
I do, Kimberley Sheroes. And actually, you were the inspiration for that. If you remember, I contacted you a few years ago to say, hey, I want to, in amplifying Indigenous women's voices, how do I do that? Because I'm a novice. Like, I don't know how to do this. I'm not an interviewer. I'm not trained in all these systems of how to, you know, record stories and share them, you know, globally. But we did that a few years ago, and I did that, not even that I had funding for it, Mandamara. I basically did that off my own bat.
I remember the phone call. I actually remember yarning with you.
Yes.
And I said to you, what about I talk to my producer, Clint?
Yes.
And I introduced you to Clint, didn't I?
You did.
You've done some work together. Did he help you do some stories or recording?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did about 12 podcasts. So after I started it off at my own expense, I then ended up getting funding from a partner who enabled me then, which enabled me, I should say, to complete those podcasts. And I did 12, and we uploaded them and we've shared them widely. And I love that anybody in the world can hear these stories. They're directly from Aboriginal women in the Kimberleys on their own personal journeys, experience, thoughts, perspectives, the works. And I just love that, because the women that we had, you know, that I had on that podcast series are really exceptional women who I admire enormously. And I think they should be promoted around our country and their stories heard.
For sure.
So then at the end of that series where I interviewed those 12 women, those stories were then transcribed and put into a magazine. And the magazine was Kimberley Sheroes and Not So Secret Women's Business. Ooh. So can you imagine, we've created a whole magazine with those stories, and also sharing the number of a huge number of Indigenous businesses that operate around the Kimberley region.
Wow. That otherwise were not known to the general public or even to the wider community.
Correct.
Wow.
So it's raising the profile of those businesses as well, and putting it all in one publication where we can say to people, look at the enormous value that our Indigenous businesses are bringing to this region. Mm-hmm. Value them and engage them, utilize their services and buy their products.
So in terms of,
amazing.
You know, connecting with Aboriginal women, hearing our stories and supporting each other, I love the fact that you've been able to do that What have been some of the challenges for you so that our listeners and viewers now can hear some of these insights, and hopefully if they're in a position to support some of our businesses and initiatives, programs that you're running in your community, then they'll understand where can they best put their resources or time, towards.
Yeah, well, let me just first say the business has been operating here for thousands of years, right? And that's called Wurna. That's called the circular economy or the trade or the exchange program. That was not a program, but the way of life that Aboriginal people had in the Kimberley, exchanging with neighbours, trading with neighbours, Indigenous other tribes, So that's already been going on for a very long time. But business in a Western model or a concept is foreign to a lot of our people. So now across the Kimberley region, as I've just given you some stats in regards to how big we are, there's almost 2,300 businesses, registered businesses. Less than 10% of those are Indigenous. Less than 10%, even though we're almost half of the population. Yeah. All right? But yet for every $1 going into an Indigenous business, there's $4.40 return, social return. We're 100% more likely to employ an Aboriginal person. So our reinvestment back into community and to our people and to our family is unparalleled by non-Indigenous businesses. They'll never compete with us because our desire to reinvest back into our community is equal to our desire to make a profit and a living off our businesses.
Yeah.
So doesn't it make complete sense to absolutely bolster up the numbers, encourage and make pathways for more Aboriginal people to go in the space of business? It's the fastest way to close the gap.
Definitely. No? So that investment, you need investment. We need investment. We need non-Indigenous peoples and businesses that are part of the wider community, especially here in Australia, to actually back us, do business with us, build relationships with us, because that's what's missing. Unfortunately, the history of this country has kind of divided us. And the fact that it's unresolved business in terms of the history, we're still, when you think about it, we are the only English-speaking common law country in the world that still doesn't have an agreement or a treaty with the First Peoples. And we've never gone through a formal truth-telling process like in South Africa. They had the Truth and Reconciliation Process or Commission. Germany, they own their history. It's taught in the curriculum. There's other countries around the world, according to the Ebony Institute in Victoria, they've got a paper, a truth-telling paper based on 72 other countries around the world that have gone through a similar process for us to have a look at and go, all right, what can we do in this country that's going to, help with truth-telling, and I would say justice, and then reconciliation will sort itself out. Through engaging with us as First Nations peoples and businesses, that's reconciliation in practice. For building those relationships, we're able to close the gap, right? We're able to start to understand each other, support each other, and uplift each other. That's the biggest thing is that, the 97% of the population in Australia, the 97% that come from at least 300 different backgrounds, they need to educate themselves about this history, about Australia. And then the 3% of us that make up the Indigenous population, we're the ones doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And we're also trying to hold businesses and studies and families. We're trying to do all of this as well as do the education piece, which is really exhausting. So through connecting with each other, you and I having this yarn, people that are listening, hopefully they start to see an opportunity, right? How can you engage, invest, interact, participate, partner with us as First Nations peoples? We can't do it on our own, and we need people to be able to support us. How have you been able to get that support? IBA is one, program in terms of the Strong Women, Strong Business that have been able to bring Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people or women together in this country. It hasn't happened since, you said, 2018 or 19?
18 was the one that I attended.
2018, bringing at least 100 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women together. Right, I didn't get to go to that one. Maybe tell us a little bit about what that forum was like, because I'm pretty jealous that I never got to go. At that time, I actually did not have the money to actually invest in myself to go.
Yeah, no, it was the expenses were covered, and it was fantastic opportunity to come together with a lot of other Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander women to talk about business aspirations and our endeavors in this space, which is foreign. We're first generation business owners. We're coming into a new space, and there's a lot of learning to be done. So I think, as in all cases, when you have Aboriginal people coming together, no matter what part of the country they're coming from, there's this immediate connection because we have a shared history. We have a similar story, and we're actually contending with a lot of significant challenges in our own communities that are similar.
Yeah.
So we come together and we take encouragement and we take courage and we take inspiration from our sisters in those kind of forums, and so that was highly valuable. So I've since come back, and it wasn't long after I attended that forum that I then launched my own business, the Kimberley Gigas. But since then, IBA also further sponsored me to host women's events on the ground here in the Kimberley, and I hosted one in the East Kimberley on Jaru country, which is my country. So it was the Nguringas in business, because Nguringa is the word for woman. And then a year later, we held one in West Kimberley on Bunaba country, which is we in country, and we is the word for woman in the Bunaba language. So, and we had gathered probably 40, 50 women at each of those conferences to talk about business and how business is a new way to create wealth. And since then, Kimberley Gigas has also partnered up with two other key entities called Good Return and Menzies Foundation, and we have created an initiative called the Maganda Makers Initiative. And Maganda is a Jaru word. It means tomorrow. It speaks to us having a vision. And Maganda Makers is Kimberley Indigenous women building wealth through business. So across the region now, we have more than 100 Kimberley Aboriginal women that we encourage in regards to their business thinking and their business aspirations. It's like a club. We have a website. So Maganda is Maganda, Maganda Makers. You can find this website online, and where we put resources on there for our women to get together and have those resources in the one place to access easily and to build their confidence up. We also have 8 women, Aboriginal women around the Kimberleys, who we call our business builder navigators, who are helping us to touch base with those 100-odd women to encourage them in their business goals. Natasha, so it's a very super exciting time.
Super exciting, but that is a model. That's a recipe for success. You've got the model there.
Yeah.
Imagine if we were able to take that model to Aboriginal communities, Torres Strait Islander communities right across the country.
Yeah.
That would empower our women.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Unbelievable that I'm hearing this. And even the, what did you call the mentors, those 8 women?
Business builder navigators. There's 8 of them.
Business builder navigators. Can you just share with our listeners, especially black fellas that may be listening or even watching, how did you come up with the concept? What was happening in your community? Was it the fact that you had Aboriginal people coming to you and asking you, hey, sis, you're doing really well. How did you set up your business?
Yeah.
Or did you start talking to some key partners, or did they come to you and
say... They found me.
They found you.
Me.
Okay,
Incredible.
I love this. Love this.
Incredible. So I started Kimberley Gigas in 2018, and I'm a very proactive person. So even when you're first starting a consultancy business, you don't just immediately get gigs and you're not trusted. You're unknown source, you're unknown quantity. They don't know what you can produce, if it's quality or not.
And add the fact that we're Aboriginal is another layer of complexities, right? In terms of you work, and I know this from my own experience, we work 10 times harder to get the same outcomes at non-Indigenous people in business. We work 10 times harder.
Not only that, we invest our own money. We actually invest our own money into outcomes, or we do a job. Someone can give me $50,000 and I'll produce a $100,000 project for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know why? Because I'm willing to work hard for my family and for my community to get a good outcome for everybody. Yeah. And I don't know if our governments understand how important it is that we have relatable business models in our own communities. As an Aboriginal person, who do you think I'm inspiring? I'm inspiring other Aboriginal people to go into business. Mm-hmm. So I set up my business. I was very, very proactive for at least a year, maybe 18 months, maybe more, doing what I was doing. Whether someone was engaging me or not, I was busy. I was organizing events. I was out there talking. I was out there,
Whether you're being paid or not, you're still getting up every day. Yep.
getting up every day and being proactive. And so when you're highly motivated, and it basically shows people that you're an action taker. I'm not waiting for funds. I'm not waiting for someone to give me something. I'll go and do it myself if I can't find the help. And I tried. There was multiple attempts that I made to try and get funding for certain things, and no one was interested. So I had to do it myself. But then as a result of that, I was then approached. Imagine in the whole of Australia, funders and partners who had the resources came to me and said, would you be willing to work with us on this initiative? The Menzies Foundation is a leader. Okay, they have interest to create leaders, and they've got to work with Aboriginal First Nations people. So they've come to me, they've approached me with a concept. I've taken it on board. We are 18 months into a 4-year pilot. When we have created this pilot, when we have cut the keys, as it were, for that, how this success is going to work, we give you the template. We give other communities the template, and you go ahead with our learnings and you go and implement it in your own region and change it for the nuances of your own spaces, your own languages, your own people, and move ahead with this idea of becoming more economically empowered for our First Nations communities.
Love it. And you know what, sis, when you mentioned the Menzies Foundation, all I could think about was the Murra Indigenous Entrepreneurs Program that's run out of the Melbourne Business School.
Yeah.
We all got a mentor after the program, right? It's not a graduate certificate. It's not an MBA. It's a program where you have the best lecturers, right? We had the Dean of the Business School. We had the Associate Dean of the Business School. They were our lecturers, right? So you get the best of the best in the program.
Yeah.
My mentor was Liz Gillies. Now, Liz Gillies is the CEO of the Menzies, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know what she did.
Yes.
I did this program. I've got 5 children, 3 that I gave birth to. I went through the program before I had Tiger Leaf, so it might have been about 8 years ago. 9 years ago. Black Card was in its first kind of 6 months. So I'm 10 years old, the business, Black Card, which is a business that I set up with my old people.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you. When I went to the business school and I'm learning about budgets and business plans, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we got none of this, right? I got the 3 elders, I've got all the energy and I'm helping them. It's their vision. And here I am 10 years later as their CEO. Doing that masterclass not only opened up my eyes to, what is possible for us as a business in terms of growth and the Aboriginal networks and other business people that I could then, engage with and reach out to and ask them, how did you do it and what are you doing? You kind of leverage off each other, that circular economy. I was able to see that in practice, in action, by participating in that course. But my mentor, I didn't realise until years and years later that Liz Gillies was my mentor. Liz was the person that I would ring and cry to. She was the person that I would ring on the weekend, unload all of my baggage because I didn't want to be a burden to my elders. I didn't want them to realise how much stress was involved in running a business. So to them, it wasn't all smooth sailing, but I tried to hide a lot of the things that I was dealing with. And I was I was able to talk or unload to Liz. And every now and again, when I would talk to her and I'd start crying, she's like, I just want to check in on you. And I'd say to her, I can't do it anymore. But I don't have the courage to tell my elders that this is it. I didn't have the courage to walk away from them or to leave them with it. I felt, no, I've got to stick it out. I've got to keep doing this. And, look, 10 years later, Black Card, I think we've got about 21 people on our books, and we, service a lot of big organisations, a lot of the banks and universities.
Yes.
Who has been your mentor? Like I said, Liz Gillies, big shout out if you're listening to this episode, Liz.
So Liz Gillies and Michelle Evans are basically the key women.
There you go. Wow.
Are the key women that basically have created Muganda Makers and taken a chance to partner with me, an unknown person, and we've built an incredible relationship and a respect and an ongoing understanding of how these things have to work. All right. And that's where we say, especially for like someone like Liz, as a non-Indigenous ally, that's what we need. And there's actually a lot of goodwill in Australia. There's actually a lot of people out there who want to empower Indigenous people, not just women, men and women,
Yep.
And
minority
we,
groups, other people that have come from other
and
countries.
other minority groups. We're a minority. When you talk about 3% of the population, that's less than 1 million people. Yeah. So when you talk about being fatigued and frustrated, that's how we basically live.
That's exactly it.
That's, honestly, that's it in a nutshell.
Yep.
So we just want people to absolutely understand what we're contending with here on a daily basis, because we have to sustain ourselves in a very challenging environment. We've got to manage the expectations of our communities. Mm-hmm.
We're accountable to community.
We're accountable to communities.
Whereas in non-Indigenous people within their businesses, they're not accountable to community.
They're not. They don't deal with black politics. We do.
I love it. I love the fact that you're saying this, that we have to manage the expectation of our community.
We do.
And if we don't, then,
Yeah. And also sustain ourselves. So taking on work in a sustainable manner, that I can't change overnight what has taken 200 years to basically create. Mm-hmm. All right? Our walls are broken down. In our communities, there are significant social challenges going on. And I'm trying to navigate my way around a situation that's very hard, very complex. And I've got to do it in a way that I'm changing the narrative. And I'm now speaking from a strengths-based approach. I'm now promoting the good stories, the great things that people are doing. Because you know why? Because they've overcome adversity. They're not prepared to be a victim, okay? They're saying, regardless of what has happened in the past, we're here now. So what am I doing with my life and my God-given talents? Yeah. All right? And so in doing that, we've got a number of people across the Kimberley that provide business support. But again, I come back to the relatable role model of Aboriginal people.
Yeah. Showing
something that can be done and inspiring our community in a way that other people can't. Mm-hmm. People have got to realize the importance of Aboriginal people succeeding and having role models and celebrating success.
Yes.
Because we also deal with lateral violence.
Exactly.
How do we celebrate success so other people can see this is normal?
Mm-hmm. I hear you, my sister. I put a post on LinkedIn recently, and the first 5 words was, this is not I'm not big noting. The first thing I said, I'm not big note. I didn't even realize what I was doing because of how we've grown up. That if you talk yourself up or put yourself out there, right, then you're big noting. And you've grown up in a society where you don't want to be known as a big noter, right? That's a commonality amongst black fellas around the country. How do we get beyond that we don't see ourselves as big noting, that we're actually celebrating our achievements, we're celebrating our hard work, and we're also showing our community and younger generations, if they're prepared to put in the hard work and they're prepared, right, to make sacrifices as we have as Aboriginal women in business, that they too can have what we've got.
Yeah. But Mandana, a lot of that does still happen, where a lot of our people are not happy for the success of other countrymen because they themselves are in a horrible situation. So it's hard for them to be happy for others, but we've also got a cohort, of course, that are very encouraging of us and congratulating us when we are succeeding. And we're not going to stop succeeding. We're actually going to get more and more successful as we go along, and we're going to make those successes normal. So no, I'm not going to shrink back. No, I'm not going to start failing just because you need to feel good about yourself and the position that you're in, whatever that may be. I'm going to excel and I'm going to produce excellent material.
Yeah.
I draw my inspiration from many of our women. I draw my inspiration from my elders. I draw my inspiration from people who have gone through tough times but still have an extraordinary grace, humility, and simplicity of life. The real people, authentic people on the ground who got no airs or graces about themselves, Yeah. And those are the women that I seek to also amplify and promote and raise their profile, even though sometimes they don't want me to because they're shy and
well,
and they're okay just to be
that big noting, right? We don't talk ourselves up. We don't put ourselves outside of the group. or that's been ingrained in us for some reason as Aboriginal people. Natasha, who's been one of your, if you think about like a mentor, who's mentored you? Is there anyone in particular, or is it the community as a whole?
I think it's just the community as a whole. I don't regard that I have, one specific mentor.
Yeah.
I take my encouragement from a lot of different people, including my own family. My own family are supportive of what I'm doing and encouraging to me. So my husband is a wonderful support to me, and just so many people, so many good people out there that have come along the way. The lady that helped me to start my business, the people that support me now in continuing my business, they're all part and parcel of my journey, and me being where I am. And imagine if you had given up in those hard years 10 years ago, you could have easily given up.
Definitely.
But the story here is to persevere, and just to continue to build your resilience, because it's not going to happen quickly. You've got to have some blood, sweat and tears in there. It's not an easy path. And at the same time, we're also educating our own Aboriginal people to value us as business owners and operators. They need to be educated in regards to the value that we bring to the table as well, and extend some of those government funds that they're getting to engage us and our services to help them get better outcomes that they're actually mandated to do.
Of course. Keep the money in the community. Back us.
Give the money to the community, and don't have a non-Indigenous manager sitting there and letting them believe that they're actually knowing all the answers to the problem. They don't. Utilize strong Aboriginal people in your community who've been there all their lives. They've got some understanding now of the nuances, and they innately know some of the answers to some of the problems that you're trying to tackle. Yeah. So use wisdom.
Love it.
And use a little bit of understanding to know that they're very, very valuable.
And I'm pretty sure that a lot of mob listening to this yarn are probably going to hear you, my sister. We do have, like you said, there's people in our communities and organisations that are well-meaning, good intentions, but they do not have the lived experience that we have as Aboriginal people growing up in our Aboriginal culture and community and families. So to wrap up this yarn, is there any advice to, that you would share to our young Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women that are listening, our young women and girls that are listening or watching this podcast? What advice would you give to them or share with them?
I would say to young people, use a bit of wisdom and know that there are many people who are 10, 20, 30, 40 years ahead of you, and take some of their wisdom. So when they're telling you something, they know from lived experience what they're talking about. And you can be yourself and you can take your own parts, but take a little bit of wisdom as well from others who might know a little bit more.
Yeah.
But the world is your oyster. It is truly, truly an exciting time to be here, to be in this space, and to see the enormous things. I believe there's a great future. I believe there's amazing things about to happen for Aboriginal people, So I'm very optimistic, and to be a young person in this day and age, I think, okay, you can do whatever you want to do, really. You've got the global, community available to you now. That didn't exist, when I was a young person. Now we've got technology that connects us with everybody in the world, and you can do whatever you want to do. Go for it.
Oh, what an amazing way to actually wrap up this yarn. I want to keep on yarning, but I know that especially for our Aboriginal radio stations, we've got Bumma Bippera up in Cairns, Jackie Tim, Trevor Tim, and the whole mob there that play Black Magic Woman on their radio station. I'm pretty sure it's Tuesday and then again on Saturday. I'm pretty sure I heard that Cherbourg Radio play Black Magic Woman podcast. But for any other Aboriginal community radio stations right across this country, there are over 100 episodes that you can use to basically play on your stations, which is Aboriginal content. And you can hear a lot of our stories from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people right across the country. I know there's a radio station in Kununurra. Maybe we might have to get them to start playing the podcast so we can keep inspiring our mob through opportunities.
They actually have just started playing my podcast.
Well, there you go.
So, and this one as well. Hopefully, I'll definitely recommend it to them.
Love it, because these stories need to be told, they need to be heard, and we need to share it with the wider community and bring more people along on this journey, especially when it comes to women, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women in business. So look, on that note, my sister, thank you so much for being part of this amazing partnership with Indigenous Business Australia and the Black Magic Woman podcast. I am so happy to hear that from that conversation, that yarn when you picked up the phone, that you've actually been able to now produce at least 12 episodes, and you now have your own consulting, and you've got partnerships with people like the Menzies and also with Michelle Evans. Big shout out to you, Michelle, and all the work that you've been doing in our community and in the university sector, you know, with developing courses. I know a lot of our mob that have done the Murrah program have now furthered their education, and they're now doing their MBA. So look, from little things, big things grow, and you've been, you know, evident of that. My business, your business, and other black fellas around the country that I can't wait to have on this podcast. So look, I'll let you go. I won't take up too much of your time, but it'll be deadly to have another yarn with you in the next couple of months around the program, that partnership with the Menzies Institute, and see how we can get a bit of an idea or an insight on when it might be available for us. And I will put my hand up for Queensland and New South Wales to be part of piloting it if it gets to that stage. So please keep me in mind. And I look forward to hearing more of the amazing work that you're doing across the Kimberleys and across the country, but more so in your community there in Kununurra. So thank you so much.
Thanks,
and enjoy the rest of the
keep
day.
up the wonderful work.
Oh, thank you, my sister. So good to hear from you. How do we get that book that you put up? Is it from the website so we can put in our show notes?
You can go to the Kimberley Birds website. I'm on LinkedIn. I've got a YouTube, Facebook, and we've got an online store.
Deadly.
So you can buy that magazine, or we also have digital copies of it as well. So
deadly.
Yeah. Please touch base if you'd like to. But thanks so much.
Love it.
Keep up your fantastic work. And
you too.
Wally Loo.
All right, Watamuli in my father's language. I am literally on cloud 9 having a yarn with an amazing Aboriginal woman like Natasha. Just makes you think about, you know, what more can I do? She's doing so much in her community, and I keep thinking about what more can I do, but I hope you're starting to think about what can you do. If you hadn't had a chance to connect with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander business owners, and hopefully now you're thinking that there is opportunities. Reach out to Natasha if you're in the Kimberleys. If you're an Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander person that's looking at being in business or starting a business, or you're stuck, you've got some challenges or some hurdles, reach out to Natasha. There is a program, she was talking about people that will go out and support you. That's happening in the Kimberleys as we speak. In terms of out in the wider community, if anyone out there is part of a program that's around supporting or wants to support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in business, at least reach out to me. I would like to know what's happening out there in the wider community so that I can direct some traffic to your programs or your initiatives. I get a lot of people that ring me or email me or reach out on LinkedIn, Indigenous and non-Indigenous people that have either, you know, done black card training and want to kind of engage or connect with different communities or build relationships, you know, especially with traditional owners. Understanding what community needs. Every community is different. What the community want in Kununurra may be different to what a community want in Redfern, you know, so to speak. So go and build relationships with the local Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander community. Find out what's happening, you know, in terms of business programs, initiatives, or reach out to Indigenous Business Australia. IBA have many programs and many different things that they do. And if you're not too sure what they do, jump online, have a look. You can either go to iba.gov.au or in our show notes, you can have a look at the 1300 number. Reach out, talk to someone, and they'll be able to, you know, assist you or guide you and tell you what's currently happening or what you need to do to be in the position to be able to participate in some of their programs. Strong Women, Strong Business is about empowering Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women to be in a position to be, financially sustainable and stable. We need to support our women in our communities. In Aboriginal culture, women are the strength of our culture. We need to back women, support women, and make sure that our younger generation have us to look up to aspire to be like. If they can see their mums, their aunties, their sisters that are working, that are in business, that are doing their MBAs, they've got that hope. They've got, deep down inside, they know that if their mum's doing it or their grandmothers are doing it, then there's nothing stopping them. And that's what we need. We need our younger generation to be able to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that the grass is greener on the other side of the hill. Like Natasha said, there are a lot of social challenges in our communities. Please don't confuse social problems with Aboriginal culture. We never had these problems before the first fleet arrived in our country. I hope you were inspired by listening to the yarn and also just hearing some of the programs that universities are offering. Murra is the Indigenous Entrepreneurs Masterclass that Michelle Evans and Ian Williamson, who they set this program up through the Melbourne Business School, which is part of obviously Melbourne University, about 10 years ago. You've got Monash University. Monash have basically kicked off the first ever MBA in Indigenous Business Leadership, and I am part of the first cohort to go through that MBA. That's through Monash University. I know that they're currently also looking for the next cohort to go through that program. So reach out to Monash. I know Katrina Johnson is a course coordinator and has been a big part of actually kicking that course off. So yeah, if you're thinking of the next step, you're in business and you want to go and get a formal qualification, they're the two universities that I know are doing amazing things because I've experienced it myself firsthand. There may be other universities doing amazing things, but I haven't been part of those programs, so I can't tell you whether or not, what's possible, what's not, who's been through it, what their experiences have been like. Maybe some of the guests that I'm about to have on this podcast through the Strong Women, Strong Business Partnership with IBA, we may hear some of those stories in future episodes. But anyways, what I'm going to do now is say goodbye. So until next time, bye for now.
If you'd like to know more about IBA and how they can help you to own your own home, start or grow a business, or invest in your future, visit iba.gov.au or free call 1800 107 107. Don't forget to follow Black Magic Woman podcast on all social media platforms. To keep up to date with the latest episodes and news, head to blackmagicwoman.com.au. You can rate and review the podcast on iTunes, and please feel free to share the podcast with your family and friends.